just kind of a decoration. Oh, yes, and since we're in the decoration department, a planer. This is from the steam days. Actually, when I first started doing machine work, a lot of the shops that I worked in had, I never had it, it was in a shop that had one of these, although I saw other shops that did, that we toured when I was going to college. But it was common in a lot of the shops to have older lathes, older mills that had open flat belt pulleys that were meant to run off of steam engines and line shafts originally, but had been updated to run off of an electric motor. The most common setup you would see is you would see the flat belts, and this is flat belt on a little steam engine here. But you'd see the flat belt for the equipment, and they'd have V-belts running on it with the flat V-belts running on here, a multi V-belt pulley on the other side. And then the most interesting part after that is hooked up to the electric motor would be a Model A transmission. And it got such a common thing to use the Model A transmissions in this application. Some of them were actual Model A transmissions, some of them were aftermarket Model A transmissions used for electric motor speed change. And the difference is the ones that were not originally meant for a Model A didn't have reverse. So it was the same basic transmission, but it's no reverse. So those were actually still pretty common in industry in the 70s and 80s in a lot of the U.S. Some out-of-the-way places still have those too. Anyway, this slides back and forth, has different feeding mechanisms, and you have a single tool bit that goes there, and as it moves along, every time the table moves, the part that you're working on actually moves back and forth. It takes a little cut lengthwise, just takes a chip lengthwise, moves over, takes another cut. Kind of the same idea as the shaper, but on a shaper or slaughter, your cutter is moving. And there are actually fairly new versions of these that are made even as late as I think the 80s. And they may probably even still make some today that are hydraulic driven. Usually instead of they may have a single point type tool that you can mount on here and there, but more commonly they have planer heads, milling heads, and grinders because it's just a handy platform for working on larger pieces where you're doing long cuts. Similar flat belt drive drill press. This one here, part of the stand was broken. It doesn't really set up, but again, display piece and display steam engine.